Okay, am I on?
You're on, and you're
Oh,
recording.
Good. Hi, Ann and Bert and Sandy. And what's your husband's name again? I'm sorry. What's your husband's name?
Are you talking about Ann's husband?
Yes.
That's Sam.
Oh, Sam.
It's temporary.
Okay, whatever it is, welcome. We are going to, we're going to do a few things today to kind of wrap things up. And I especially want to, be sure you have all your questions answered as you embark on your own, hopefully, attempts to create your forever letter. So I thought we would just start with, we had given an assignment, an optional assignment last week with the legacy family tree. And we had you put the traits and qualities of character you inherited from parents, grandparents on the roots part of the tree, then your own qualities on the trunk of the tree, and then your descendants, what you've given to them and how they've turned out on the leaves and branches. Did either of you do that? That you'd like to share something from that assignment? Bert, Sandy, Ann, anything?
I didn't do that, but I did order the book, Forever Letter, and I've been reading it.
Okay, well, that's even better. Good.
That's excellent. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, good. Bert, Sandy, anything?
Yes, I started taking notes and did it. And when I got to the trunk, I found that the trunk was really the same as the roots.
Did you? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think pretty much. I mean, do you want me to talk about some of them?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Importance of religion, importance of family, integrity.
Can't hear her.
We tried.
Did we lose her?
Yeah, and I can't see Bert. It's black also. Did they want the video to be off?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not sure why they went dark. Bert, can you hear us?
Might be their battery. It was out.
Yeah, we might have lost them for short, but we can continue though. They'll come back quickly.
Hopefully they'll come back. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Joyce. Nice for you to join us. How are you?
Who came?
Choice.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Hi, Joyce.
Yeah. Hi. I couldn't be here last week. I had a conflict. Are these taped? Are these sessions taped?
Yes. Cantor Azu was moderating last week, and I believe I did ask her to tape it. Rabbi Bob?
Yes, we have all 3 past sessions up on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll go check that out. Okay.
Great. Yes, you can see all 3, and this is also being recorded currently, so this one will be up as well.
Great.
Well, I was there for the first 2, but I couldn't make it last week. That's all.
All right. Yeah, you'll be able to see everything we did up on YouTube. All right. Well, while we're waiting for Bert and Sandy to rejoin us, Ann, did you say last week you had written?
I did. The problem is I have a lot of family names in it that nobody would be interested in. I wanted the boys to know who everybody was. So I think I should probably skip that.
Well, why don't you, would you like to share with us anything of what you wrote? We'd love to hear it.
Let's see. I'll share this.
I'm excited to hear it myself.
We lived in a Jewish neighborhood. The only non-Jew in my 4th grade class was Noelle Orel. She told me she was not Jewish as we walked home from school one day. She told me how her family celebrated Christmas with a tree and presents. I thought that sounded strange as we got presents at Hanukkah without a tree and we lit candles. I was never jealous because I didn't have a reason. All my friends, and I named them all, were Jewish too. I have a lot, but
Okay.
I should read more.
No, I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, the whole point is it's your first draft, and I'm sure it's going to end up being refined and rewritten as time goes on and re-edited.
Right.
So you're off to the races. That's
But
wonderful.
what I realized is that I have two boys, 3 years apart. They're grown. They have children of their own. I think I have to write 2 letters because to talk to each of them is totally different.
Well, and I think that's important because, you know, each of them is in a different place. And we're going to actually talk about that today, is writing to someone where they're at. And that's very important. So I think that's something that's good that you've recognized on your own that you need to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's hard to write a generic letter where, you know, one size fits all.
Right.
So good point, good point. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Bert and Sandy, would you like to continue what you were talking about with the legacy tree? You're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Are we unmuted now?
Yes.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what you heard of what I said before, and
You said that a lot of the traits of your parents and yourselves were similar, and you talked about importance of family, importance of religion, and then we lost.
okay. Importance of tzedakah. And I just found that most of the traits that were in my roots, I really think are in my trunk. And as far as passing them on, I think so, I hope so, but don't know totally. But I just found it interesting that, you know, the similarity.
Yeah, well, you know, it really brings that saying to, like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and we would hope that some of the traits that we've inherited from our parents and grandparents will be able to pass on to our grandchildren, and I'm sure you already see beginnings of that as they're growing up, and we'll continue to see as they enter adulthood. So it's kind of a neat assignment because you see how things really do get passed on from generation to generation. So it's a good assignment to do. And Joyce, you missed it last week, but you'll see my description of it on the YouTube. So you'll be able to do it.
The only thing I have is what we wrote the second week.
Okay. Did you
No.
share that yet?
No, I hadn't shared it, and I haven't even looked at it since I wrote it, but I can share it with you.
Certainly, please.
It was the answer to, I guess, your earliest Jewish experiences that I had taken off from there.
Right.
And I wrote, growing up in a mixed neighborhood, I always realized that there were all other types of people other than Jews. However, our whole sphere of contacts were Jewish relatives as well as Jewish friends. By age 2, my parents, which was 1951 for me, my parents had moved from Brooklyn to the Bronx, where we lived on the 3rd floor of a 4-story tenement walk up on Tremont Avenue. My maternal grandparents lived on the 2nd floor. I remember kindergarten when I must have been 5 and was told we couldn't go to school, which I loved because of the Jewish holidays. But I really wasn't missing anything because in those days, all schools were closed, public and parochial, because most of the teachers were Jewish. So they closed the schools down all the time, the public schools. Papa Benny and Baba Basha lived 1 floor below us and were always there to make me feel special. I was the oldest of 4 children, the oldest of their grandchildren. I knew what was expected of me, and my Papa Benny and Baba Basha gave me chores to polish the oil wick candelabra. We had an oil wick candelabra there, and the Shabbos candles to help make pierogan. My Papa Benny had had a restaurant in Chicago before the Depression. I knew the prayers to recite and help my siblings. When I was 8, I was enrolled in Cheder after school, and my brother was 6 and was sent to yeshiva. See, the boys went to yeshiva and the girls went to Cheder. There was division, so my sister and I were taught differently than my boys. After all, girls would marry and do whatever their husbands thought. That's where I ended at that point.
Okay. Wow. It's terrific. How many of your grandchildren would know all that about you, what you just shared with us?
My grandchildren, none. Because look, you're spanning 5 generations that, well, I didn't go into my great-grandparents, but my grandparents, their grandfather, their great-grandfather, me, my son, and them. We're talking 5 generations.
Yeah.
And
What a great.
most of us are right in the middle of that, right? We have grandchildren, and some of us remember our grandparents very well.
Mhm, mhm. Well, think of how, revealing and that it'll be so special for them when they get a little bit older, and we'll be able to read that and find out all kinds of things about their grandma that they had no idea. I mean, it's such a great gift to do that. So, I mean, that's exactly what we're trying to get to memories of, growing up before our grandchildren would have ever known us or even conceived of us. I remember the first time I saw a picture of my grandmother with her 2 sisters when they were teenagers. I mean, it just knocked me off my chair. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, you look young at one point. It's incredible. Now, and if you have pictures of when you were, a little girl to go with that, I mean, it just makes it all come alive. So very nice, very nice. That's what what kind of thing that we're looking for.
And that was only the maternal side. The whole paternal family was totally different.
Yeah, yeah. But the whole point is it takes effort to write this, but what you end up with is something money can't buy. It's so precious for your descendants. All right, hi Pearl, how are you? You're muted. We'd like to. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Pearl.
I'm sorry I had computer problems. I was here on time, but my computer didn't cooperate.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Well, we're glad you're able to join us. And if you have anything to share about anything you've written, or if you did anything with the legacy tree assignment, anything you'd like to share.
Nothing. What I wrote last time was about it as what I've written, but I was interested in going into this thing about what part of the circle I corresponded with.
Oh, did you have some thoughts about that?
So I had thoughts about that.
Okay, terrific.
and
Go ahead.
The interesting thing is, I think
I'll tell you what, Pearl, let's have Rabbi Boxman flash the spectrum, the life wheel, the one that I did, the second one. If we could put that up on the screen for everyone to see, and then Pearl can talk about it.
yeah.
Okay, wait, so give me just a moment. I have the JAS. Let me pull up the life wheel. Here it is. Sorry, everyone. Okay, I should be able to share it now. Can you see that?
Yep, we got it.
Okay.
Great. Okay. All right, go ahead, Pearl.
The thing is that I found that I was, especially in the first part of I was very much all a part of that. The self-loving, the self-conscious, the self-doubting, the self-loathing, not so much, and not the self-hating. But I really was thinking about when we did the Stars of David, when you had that circle with the how we corresponded to our Jewishness.
Yes. Well, let me just ask you, I want to be clear on this. So you're saying that you have felt at different points in your life, you felt all of those categories on the right, except for self-hating. There are times you felt self-loving, times you felt self-conscious as a Jew, times that have been filled with doubt, and then even self-loathing. Is that what you were saying? Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah.
Can you identify which, was there a time in particular that you may have been doubting more than others?
Yes, when the 2 times when my mother died, and then again when my first husband died.
Mhm.
But I've always felt very, very connected to Judaism, as my children do. I have 3 children, and they're all very connected to Judaism. I'm certainly a practicing Jew. In most ways, I go to the temple on a regular basis. I always felt very good about being Jewish, and my children feel that way too.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, well, great. And now you've just demonstrated perfectly how this Jewish life wheel can help you begin to craft your forever letter, because you start to think about, well, where have I been throughout my life in terms of how observant or practicing have I been? Were there times where I was about my Judaism? Were there times that I really didn't enjoy being Jewish, or I was embarrassed to be Jewish? And then on the top wheel, you have enmeshed, connected, questioning, disengaged, disconnected, other words that help you, get in touch with your Jewish identity. So yes, exactly. It gives you the ideas of what to write about and how you've related to your Judaism over the course of your life. All right, let me ask Anne or Bert or Sandy or Joyce, have any thoughts on this? Does this help you kind of focus on your level of practice and feelings about being a Jew that you'd care to comment on now?
I just wondered where the guilt factor, some people will control you and try to do things from a guilt standpoint. We had some relatives that were queen of guilt. And how does that fit into the Jewish wheel? So you're responding as a victim of guilt.
Yes, I understand. Well, let's take the example. And when I saw the Netflix series Unorthodox,
Mhm.
it gave me an insight into the fact that you can be observant, the most observant and meshed Jewish person, but be a self-hating Jew if you feel that it's being forced on you. And deep down, I'm sure there is more than one member of the Crown Heights community who's there and is involved and may have ambivalent or irreverent feelings, maybe self-loathing or self-hating as a Jew. So that's how that fits in on there. When someone forces you to practice your Judaism or to be Jewish when you don't really want to be, then that's where those categories come in. And you can feel disconnected or disengaged in your heart, even though outwardly you look like you're practicing. It's almost the opposite of a Marrano Jew who loved Judaism so much that were willing to risk their lives to practice it in medieval Spain. Okay, any other thoughts on that before we move on to the Jewish identity spectrum?
Well, one other thing that I wanted to say relating to the tree, I said, there are certain things that your parents did that you want to do better than their parents. And I try to look at things from a positive standpoint rather than a negative standpoint, which was often prevalent in the household that I grew up in. I had a great childhood, but my mother saw the negative part of things rather than the positive part of things, or the opportunities that are there.
Okay. Well, and again, you've already started the formulation of a story that you can share, and how much you want to share about that negativity, is going to be up to you in your letter. But you can begin to craft what you want to say about how you were raised Jewishly and how you overcame that to create a positive identity for yourself and your children. Good. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, if I can, I'm glad that Bert said what he said, because, and I'm fascinated by the fact that all of you seem to have a very happy relationship in terms of your memories with your being raised as Jews, and I admire that. Mine was considerably the opposite. I found that the memories that I brought forth with me were of parents who were very fearful and very concerned about their vulnerability as Jews. And I found all the holidays to be memories of parents who were just breaking down because of the losses during the war. And it struck me as something that I needed to overcome and put behind me, and to be strong instead of weak and full of foreboding. And I couldn't blame them, because they're the ones who suffered the horrors, but I didn't want that for my future. And I'm particularly careful about not transmitting this to my children or to my grandchildren. Instead, I wanted to be very strong for them.
Okay. Wow. You know, and this leads to the point of when you write your forever letter, how much should you be able to feel free to tell a story like that? Remember when those who survived the camps came to this country, you know, for at least a decade or more, no one wanted to talk about what they went through in the war. They wanted to, exactly as you said, they wanted to put it behind them, and Sam, and to forget about it. And yet, along comes Elie Wiesel in the 60s, and he starts to write about the Holocaust, and he teaches us the importance of not forgetting, so the world will never repeat it, and to be able to tell the story. So the point I want to make is, when you know, in your case, I think it would be okay to talk about these feelings you had growing up, and even the fact that you wanted to spare your children from going through what you went through. It's part of your story. And I think what this letter has to contain is our truth. This letter has to, you know, for the worst thing we can do is try to whitewash things and pretend they didn't happen, and then it's not speaking our truth. So for you, that story is part of your, it's important for you, you know, to share, and something that, you know, to the point where you feel your kids are okay with that without telling them too much, you know, but that's up to you. Is that something you feel you'd be comfortable writing about?
I don't know. I know that my children don't shy away from the relationship that our family, my family, has had with the Holocaust. But they don't really act like it's part of their building blocks as modern American adults with their children. As a footnote, you might find it interesting because you brought up Elie Wiesel. It turns out that he was in the same blockhouse in Auschwitz as my father was during the 3 years or the 2.5 years that they were there. And I only discovered that when filling out papers for my father for reparations, and then realizing in reading Wiesel's book Night that he was in the same barracks. So they really weren't barracks, but you know what I mean. And anyway, I don't like to be a downer about those things, and I don't like to represent Jews as being weak people and victims. I'm really much more inclined to go the other way. So not to hide anything, but that's why I'm speaking this way. I just found it curious that certain themes were touched on by others, and I didn't know if anyone else felt similarly to my way.
And you have to write about what you're comfortable with, and as long as you feel that you're telling your truth and the reasons for your doing so. Well, you know, your story reminds me of Katie Martin, one of the individuals we studied in Stars of David, who was sheltered by her parents from what they went through in the war for her until she was like in her 30s, and then she didn't even know she was hardly. I mean, they didn't tell her anything about her background, and when she discovered that her grandparents, I believe, were killed in the Holocaust, she found that on her own by accident, and her parents had concealed it from her, and she was so bitter and so angry for so long that they denied her the family history, and I believe they didn't tell her she was hardly even Jewish. So that's what can happen when too much is sheltered with good intentions, sometimes not so good outcomes. The point is, our children, our grandchildren are resilient, are strong, and I think they can handle whatever stories. They just want to know. They want to know their story. Don't be afraid to share it with them. Tell your truth. That's I think it's a very important point.
Your father was married twice.
Okay, let's move on to the Jewish identity spectrum. I'll flash that up on the screen. Rabbi Boxman, thank you. And this is what we had from the Stars of David course, which was part of the motivation to have this class. And this helps you to plot your own Jewish identity. When you're talking about what's important to you about Judaism, this the spectrum will be helpful. How much of your identity is focused on religion and God? How much is focused on just Jewish culture or being ethnically Jewish? Are you a strong Zionist? Do you have an experience that you went to Israel and it changed your whole Jewish identity? Do you have Jewish friends? Do you volunteer in the Jewish community? Is that where you feel that you can best serve as a Jew? What about anti-Semitism, the Holocaust? Does that inform your identity? The fact that we've been a persecuted minority for thousands of years. Are you fascinated by that we've been here 4,000 years and we continue to survive? What traditions and have you been passed down by your parents and grandparents that you continue to this day that you want your children and grandchildren to continue? Maybe you don't go to temple at all. Maybe you just like to do mitzvahs to make the world a better place and to practice tikkun olam. Do you enjoy studying and learning? And finally, how much are Jewish ethics, morals, and values at the foundation of your identity? If you were to plot your own Jewish identity, what percentage would each category receive? And that will help you focus on what you want to say in your forever letter about your Jewishness. What of these categories really forms the basis of why and how you feel Jewish? Okay? All right. So you'll be receiving these. Yes. Do we have some?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
What about if you answer yes to just about all of these? How do you divide it into percentages?
Okay.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, out of all the, I think we studied we had 3 or 4 people we did each week for 8 weeks, and there was one super Jew who got 10% because they had all 10 categories, and it was like they got the Gilgal Mazel, the Wheel of Fortune, because most of the people we studied had a lot of identity tied up in association, community, and anti-Semitism and otherness and culture, ethnicity. Those were the top 3 categories. And in many cases, they had no connection to some of the things on the left side, like study and learning, tradition, heritage, social justice. So Joan Rivers, if you will recall, was the only person who got all 10 categories. And if you feel something for each of the 10, then you would give yourself 10% for each category, and you would write about all of them. Does that answer your question?
Kind of.
Okay. You have a follow-up?
Muted.
Yeah, but what if you answer yes to like I can answer yes to most of them, but how do you put the percentage more on one than on the other?
Well, you have to feel that in your heart. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to know where the core of your identity lies. Are you a religious? Do you enjoy going to temple and celebrating holidays? Do you
These are the good friends of us. That's
order
what-
Israel?
Oh, I can print.
You like to do mitzvahs in the community, to
Yes.
do olam. So you have to, only you can decide, and this is where you have to kind of figure out your own, how these percentages go. And they don't have to be numbers. It can just, you could have 4 categories that you feel are important, and you write about those. So it's up to you how you. All right. Questions on this? Before
Frank, I have a question. Anti-Semitism and otherness. I don't know what otherness is.
Oh, okay. That term came from a few of the personalities we studied in Stars of David, who they just felt a sense of otherness that was, especially growing up, that was imposed upon them by their non-Jewish peers. I think I remember in particular Dustin Hoffman and Steven Spielberg had particularly difficult Jewish childhoods, and I think Steven Spielberg was even beaten up in school by some bullies just because he was Jewish, and Dustin Hoffman felt so self-conscious about his Jewishness that he felt like an alien amongst his non-Jewish peers, and we kind of called that a sense of otherness, where you just feel like you don't fit in. That's what that means.
One of my sons went to a baseball camp when he was, I think, 12, and he hit a home run, and one of the other kids said, "Not bad for a Jew." So that's a perfect example.
And I was on a softball team when I was 8 years old. I played, and I don't know, I hit one way over the head of the right fielder. I got a home run, and the coach said, "We're moving you up to the A team." Anything about my Jewishness, though, and that's one thing I feel very, very fortunate about. I never, I grew up and I was the only, well, maybe there were 2 Jewish kids out of 35 in my grammar school growing up. No one ever said a word about my being Jewish, and I felt very lucky about that I never encountered any anti-Semitism
Never did either.
in California, and it was mostly, it was 95% non-Jewish. So those stories are painful for kids to go through.
Mhm.
Now in Youngstown, it's very different. I hear stories all the time about some kids in outer communities, in communities that are a little separated from Youngstown, and they have experienced anti-Semitism that would make your jaw drop. Horrible, just horrible. Okay, let's move on now. I wanted to share with you some passages from the Forever Letter by Rabbi Ilana Ziman, and I think, Anne, did you say who ordered the book? Pearl? Oh,
I did.
and you ordered it. Good.
That's very good.
I strongly recommend this book, not only for how it will help you write a forever letter, but how it will help you live. And I'm going to share with you in the time that we have remaining, these are the core chapters of the book where she gives you ideas about what to write about.
What's the name of the book again, please?
A Forever Letter.
Okay.
If you
Amazon has it, and it's very cheap.
yeah,
I think it was $14.
letter, it'll come up. But the book is it's not just a guide for writing a letter, it's a guide for living. And it was powerful for me in that regard. So I just marked off a couple of sections from each little, the rabbi shared her core values. And I think a lot of these values are going to be our values. So these will give you ideas about what to write about. What is it about Judaism that you feel is special? And we're going to just start with the first one. The name of the chapter is What Matters Most. And there are about 10 different categories here. We'll go through a few of them. The first one is called Give, and it's about tzedakah. So I just want to read to you a couple of passages from each one. And then I want you to write down on a piece of paper, if this is a category that you're connecting with, just write down one word. Just write down tzedakah. And then you'll come back to it and you'll remember this is something that you want to include in your forever letter. Edith, the family friend, now in her 90s, also loves to give. She's been on the giving end since I've known her, taking food to families in mourning. Though as she ages, she is less able to give in the same ways. Giving is part of the fabric of her being. Once I asked her why. She said this: I give because I want to, because I feel those of us who can should. It's as simple as that. She then added, I feel better about myself when I give. And that's the biggest point I want to make. And we all know this, but we kind of forget about it. Who's the recipient when we give tzedakah, when we do things for others? Who really gets the benefit?
Yourself.
Yes, we do, because the feeling that we get inside is unparalleled from anything else. So we get the feeling from doing a mitzvah. We learned that from Abraham when he was so hospitable to these 3 strangers who came to his tent, and they fed them. And I mean, that's where we learn hachnasat orchim, the mitzvah of hospitality, and what that can do for us. So that's something we all know, the importance of giving tzedakah. So second paragraph, when we think of giving gifts, we often think of giving something concrete, a present, money, even a forever letter. But gifts can be intangible too. Edith understood this. She not only gave to people in our community in concrete ways by delivering food, she also gave in intangible ways, like taking people to doctor's appointments, driving to visit friends of hers who were no longer driving, and now that she is no longer driving, reaching out to friends nearby whose mental capacities are waning.
Oh, the ring's there.
So all kinds of ways. Did I miss something? Did someone want to say anything? Okay. Okay, so that one is important for us. The next one, never stop asking questions.
Excuse me.
Amazon.
You talked about giving. What about being able to receive? For a very long time, I had trouble letting people do things, and until someone said to me, "Do you know you not doing it? You're doing it for them too because they want to help." So I think it takes time, but a lot of times I felt especially in the past, that I didn't want people to do for me, and if they did, I wanted to be able to give back right away.
Okay.
So would that come under tzedakah as well?
Absolutely. As I say to every wedding couple that I marry, I hold up the 2 rings and I say, these rings represent both giving and receiving. You have to be able to do both in a true marriage of fulfillment. What applies to marriage applies to daily life. Yes, it's important to give, but you have to be able to receive also, or you're only half a person. You know, it's a balance, so no question. And that's something you would include when you talk about tzedakah. You know, you can just say, as important as it is to help others, you have to let people help you too, and you have to be able to receive. So for sure, that would be the place to put it in there. Okay? All right, let's move on. This one's never stop asking questions. And you know, we know the importance of asking questions from the Passover Seder. This child has to do the Manish Tanah, and we Jews are a questioning people. That's how we learn. It's so important to be able to ask questions. And my father always, you know, my father would tell me, you know, I'd ask a question. He said, well, that's a stupid question. And I learned never ever say a question is stupid, because they wouldn't be asking it if they didn't want to know. So the worst thing you can do is when a child asks you a question, you say, well, that's not a very smart question. Every question deserves an answer. Let me just read this. As a young adult, I heard a story about physicist and Nobel laureate Isidore Rabi, who was asked how he became a scientist.
With your look.
His decision to his mother, who every day upon his return home from school would say,
Things like this to
"You
me.
asked a good question today." And I love that because, kids come home from school and their parents, what's the first thing they ask them? What'd you learn in school today? And they all say what?
Nothing.
So you wake them up a little bit. Instead of asking that, you say, did you ask any good questions today? And they'll go, what? I think you'll throw them for a loop and maybe they'll actually engage. So just keep in mind the importance of asking questions. And you can include this in your forever letter as saying that, as soon as we stop asking questions, we've stopped living. There's always new things to learn. Always be inquisitive, always question, and question authority too. That's important also. I just want to read, we're kind of running out of time and there's a lot to cover, but I love the 4 questions from the Ethics of the Father. Who is wise? Who is strong? Who is rich? And who deserves or who is honored? Have you ever heard this one before? Who is strong or who is rich? I'm sorry, who is wise? And the answer to that is someone who can learn from everyone. Who is strong? Those who conquer the bad within themselves. Who is rich? Those who are happy with what they have. And 4, who is honored? The one who wishes to honor others. I love that. Those are my favorite questions from Jewish tradition. And,
Can you send those to us?
well, it's right out of Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers. It's actually just Google Ethics of the Fathers, and that should come up, or who is wise. Or I'm sure we can, we can figure out a way to get that to you also. I'll talk with Rabbi Boxman. Okay. We're going to go on. This is wonderful. It's called Be Positive. In 2008, Maya Angelou published Letter to My Daughter to impart her wisdom and guidance. Angelou had no daughter. She wrote for daughters everywhere, for women of all ages, colors, and faiths. In her introduction, she champions a positive outlook. And here's what she writes. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud. Do not complain. Make every effort to change things you do not like. If you cannot make a change, change the way you have been thinking. You might find a new solution. Certainly good advice for dealing in this pandemic. We can't change what's happening around us, but we can change how we feel about it, how we react and respond to it. So very good advice. And then I'll read you another paragraph. We know this to be true. We know that when we're in a negative place, we not only bring ourselves down, but we bring others down with us. And that when we're in a positive place, we lift ourselves up and we lift others up with us. We also know what it's like to be on the receiving end of someone else's attitude, that it's hard to be around people whose negative energy seems to seep out of their pores and to infect those around them. And that it's easy to be around people who are positive as their energy uplifts those in their presence. So again, I mean, this is important. Is it a Jewish value to be positive? I'm sure in your creative intelligence, you could find a way to say that this is a Jewish value to be positive, to look, not to look at the glass as half empty. And you can use Jewish history as an example. Look at all the persecution we've suffered, but yet we're still here. We're optimistic about life. How is that possible when we have suffered all we have, and yet we're still a positive people? So you can tie anything, you can tie all these things into Judaism because most positive values have some basis in Judaism. All right, and this one I think is so important. It says, say in your letter, I believe in you. For us to really, you want to make the recipient of the forever letter to feel good about themselves. And we should do this with all of the way we raise children and grandchildren anyway. We should always be pointing out their strengths rather than their weaknesses. Let me read one excerpt. We need to hear from our parents that they believe in us. We need to hear from other adults in our family and in our lives, teachers, mentors, grandparents, aunts and uncles, that they also believe in us. And, as a parent, grandparent, we're in such a unique role that we can really influence the attitudes that our progeny have by being positive. I'll read one more paragraph. We've all gone through hard times. We all know what it means not to believe in ourselves. We also know how important, even life-saving it is to have others believe in us when we have difficulty believing in ourselves. When you write a forever letter to people you love, tell them why you believe in them. Share with them a trying time in your life when you felt buoyed by another, and how that person's faith in you gave you the strength you needed to move forward. If you write to the people you love while they're in the midst of a trying time, perhaps your words will encourage them to believe themselves into brighter times. Think about the opening prayer in the service, Moda ani lefanecha. I thank you, God, for, what is it? Moda ani lefanecha, melech hai v'kayam. Thank you, God, for restoring my soul to me. What is the rest of it? I believe. Thank you for. What is the rest of it? I forgot it. Rabbi Boxman, help me out here. What's the text of Moda ani? Got a prayer book there?
Let me pull it up. I'm not good on the spot. Let me pull it up.
I only know it in Hebrew. I don't know it, the total translation.
Me too.
Yeah, because that's what Vinish must see. I just don't know the whole English translation.
Thank you, God, for restoring my soul to me. I believe in you. And then you can add on that, and thank you, God, for believing in me, even on days when I don't believe in myself. That's what I wanted to say to you. So it's all, you kind of turn it around, but and God believes in us too. But we are in a unique role for that. All right, then the other categories are love. How important it is to convey a sense of love in our letters. It's impossible to in this short section to do justice to the topic of love, but contemplating the power of love reminds us how crucial love in all its forms is to our very being. We all need to be loved. Being loved gives us the courage to be ourselves and the confidence to tackle the tough stuff. Being loved enables us to love. In your forever letters, consider telling the people you love that you love them and why you love them. Let them know you're aware of what causes them pain and even of what brings them joy. Communicate your love in whatever way you can so that they feel your love deep in the marrow of their bones, so that they understand the power of expressing their love to the people they love. All right, again, is Jewish value? Of course, ahava, love, and the way you connect it to Judaism and what we've gotten from our faith. The next one is compassion, and this is such a core of our faith, rachamim, to show compassion. The word compassion is derived from the Latin pati and cum, which means to suffer with. To have compassion is to suffer with another. In Hebrew, the word for compassion is rachamim, from the Hebrew root resh chet mem, pronounced rechem, meaning womb. My friend and colleague Lisa Bass speaks of the womb as a place that has the ability to both hold another within and to remain separate from that which it holds. A mother holds her child within, and yet mother and child are separate entities. To suffer with another, to hold another within, this is compassion. All right, so the other categories, which we're not going to have that much time to go into, follow your dreams, express gratitude. All right, that's a big one. Gratitude, hoda'ah, expressing thanks for what we feel that's good in our lives. One thing that was demonstrated very well this summer in the Hebrew congregation of Chautauqua, the service leader every week when we got to this prayer would talk about the pandemic, and then she would say what she was thankful for in her life, the blessings, whether it was just a walk she took or her grandchildren, but being able to give thanks even in a time of difficulty is at the core of the Jewish faith. Then Listen. This was an important category. Listen. My father-in-law told me about a friend of his whose wife often tells him that he's not hard of hearing, but hard of listening. Artist Anne Truitt has this to say about listening and motherhood. The mother listens to her baby. She tunes her neural receivers to the baby's and then is able psychologically to hold her child to prevent the child's feeling distress. This is the bliss of motherhood, this heavenly capacity to make another human being happy. This same attunement enables the mother to catch her baby's frustrations before they become too painful for the baby to accept. This total immersion, this oneness between mother and child continues until the child begins to mature and to separate. But in my experience as a daughter and later as a mother, there's something special about this kind of listening that continues on through the years. To this day, Serena, Ari, and I still call our mother to tell her stories about ourselves, our spouses, our children, our work, our lives. It is she who shares our stories with our father, whose dislike of the phone and whose hearing loss make taking on it increasingly difficult. As I think about my mother, I realize that like myself and most mothers I know, she was and remains engaged in the process of tzimtzum, contraction. This word comes from Lurianic Kabbalah's understanding of the creation of the world. Lurianic Kabbalah holds that the only way God could make space for the world to be created was to retract some of God's self from the world. Imagine God taking a deep breath in to make space for the creation of the world. Take a deep breath in. Feel the retraction. When we retract, we pull our egos inward. We create space for others. This is true when we listen. And I think about a famous story from Martin Buber, the philosopher. A young man came to see him, and Buber was kind of distracted with other things he was working on. And this young man poured out his heart about the frustrations in his life. And Buber hardly made eye contact, just barely gave him a listening ear. And the young man left his office and a couple of days later committed suicide. And it was something Buber never got over, that he wasn't able to be present for this young man, to be able to give of himself, to truly listen with his heart to this person's problems. We never know how important our listening is going to be to the person who's talking. And that's very much a Jewish value, isn't it? With the Shema, the very watchword of our faith tells us, listen. It's not hear, O Israel, it's listen, O Israel. The Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And it teaches us not just to listen for the voice of God, but always to be sure to listen for the voice of others. All right, and then that's all of chapter 4. And so you see how this is a book that really teaches us not how to just write a forever letter, but how to live a better life so we can write the best forever letter. The other chapter I was going to go over with you was a short one, but it has more lessons for living. Be present, be there for the other person, sort of the same thing, what I just talked about. Meet a person where that person is. Share personal experiences. Be open, be vulnerable. State hard truths with love. Add quotes, incorporate stories, bestow blessings. And I just want to say a word about adding quotes. That's a good thing to do, to pepper your letter with some quotes about Jewish values. If I were to give you my 5 favorite quotes from the entire Torah, one for each book, I would point in Genesis to the verse that says, in God's image we were created. It's a great verse to use if you want to talk about the equality of all human beings and why we all should treat each other with dignity and respect. From the book of Exodus, the verse about you shall treat the stranger equitably, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. All right, again, that's for justice for all, and to be open to the stranger, to let the disenfranchised into our lives. 36 times that's repeated in the Torah, pretty important. From the book of Leviticus, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. Again, that's self-explanatory. From the book of Numbers, I love the priestly blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord show you favor and be gracious to you. May God show you kindness and grant unto you peace. And then finally, from the book of Deuteronomy, in one parsha, Ve'et Chanan, you have the 10 Commandments, a repetition of the 10 Commandments, and the Shema and the Ve'ahavta. You shall love God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. Well, more than one sage tells us that you can't love God if you don't love other people. So, and I'm sure you have your favorite verses from Scripture. Don't feel shy about, you don't want to have too much, but it's okay to pepper your forever letter with scriptural quotes from Judaism to give your letter a little bit of bounce and some gravitas, if you will. So just get the book, Forever Letter, and I'm telling you, it won't be, you won't regret reading this book for your forever letter and just wisdom for life. It's a terrific book. I want to thank you all for being able to make this workshop, and I am available to you at any time if you would like to reach me in the future or share your forever letter with me. I would be happy to look at it, to give you some suggestions. I really want to see you be able to complete this project. And again, it could take you a week, a month, a year, doesn't matter. Just work on it consistently, set aside time each day or each week to work on it, and before you know it, you'll get it done. Okay, thank you so much.
You, Rabbi Molly, this has been wonderful.
This is great.
Really
How
love
would we get in touch with you?
Pardon me?
How would we get in touch with you?
I'll give you my cell phone.
Oh, okay.
If you say it out loud, I can type it in the chat so it's easier to see.
Are you sure you want to do that?
Love to hear from you. Certainly.
Okay. Or your email.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm a rabbi emeritus. I can afford to do that. If I were that would be troublesome. But for you guys, I'd love to hear from you.
You might be sorry.
Rob, do you want to tell us your phone number? I'll put it in the chat for people to be able to see it.
Okay. All right, very good. So any final thoughts? Or I think it's a little after 2. It's been wonderful. I've enjoyed this very much and wish you lots of mazel in writing your forever letters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, be well, everyone.
Looking forward for you doing other classes like this. This is really great.
Very good.
Rabbi Moeller will be teaching in our Melton program. So if anybody is taking the year 1 or year 2 course, Rabbi Moeller will be teaching in both of those. He'll be spending time 1 hour with each course. So that starts up in December. If you've already done those courses, please share them with others who may benefit from the blessing of getting to learn with Rabbi Moeller.
Rabbi Boxman, when are they? Is it once a week or?
Yep, the Melton courses are once a week. The courses that Rabbi Moeller is teaching is on, I want to say Thursdays, right? Is it Thursdays or Tuesdays? I can't remember which one it is.
Days and Thursdays.
Yes. So they're once a week, the courses, and they're 2 hours long or just under 2 hours. And open to the year 1 course is open to anybody. It's basically the intro course, and then they build on each other.
Will you be publishing which Melton classes are available starting in January? Because I know my Havara would love to do one together.
Well, so they're already out. They're on our website. If you go to naplestemple.org and then click on learning, I think is the tab. There's a whole page dedicated to Melton, so you can click there and see everything that's offered. We have a year 1, a year 2, and an elective. The elective is on Judaism and Islam. It's called the Star and the Crescent. All of these courses, by the way, are virtual. They're via Zoom, so nobody actually physically needs to be in Naples to attend them. You can attend from wherever you are, and obviously it'll be safe to do so because they're going to be on Zoom, so you don't need to worry about potentially coming in contact with someone and contracting the virus. So
How long is the course? How many weeks?
it's a good question. I want to say it's about 12 weeks. I could be off slightly.
It
It
starts
goes until March,
in March. Yeah,
December to March.
yeah.
Is there going to be more information coming out on this?
Yeah, so there's information up in the weekly email. There's been information about it, but we're getting ready to send out another email that's solely going to be about Melton. Hopefully next week that email will come out. So keep a lookout. I'm always available also if you have any questions that you want to direct directly towards me. My email I'll put in the chat right now. aboxman@naplestemple.org. And I'm always available for any questions specifically relating to adult education, Melton, and really anything else.
Let me just take 1 second to review. Did we send out the titles of a few books that would help us with more Jewish ideas?
I think you gave them to us.
You told us about them.
Right.
Best ideas, Why Be Jewish,
Right.
Judaism Matters, and then Harold Kushner's book, To Life.
Yeah.
You want me to write those up again?
You gave us a whole bunch.
Yeah, we typed those up, yep, the first week. So To Life, repeat them one more time.
Why Judaism Matters.
Yes, Why Judaism Matters by Rabbi John Rosoff. Why Be Jewish? And Judaism's 10 Best Ideas by Arthur Green. They're all very readable. You can read them in a day or two, and they'll just enhance they'll just reinforce and remind you of what we already know.
All right, thank you so much, Rabbi Mueller. Thank you everybody for joining us. And this session has been recorded, so it will be up on YouTube later this week. And so if you have somebody who missed this session and would like to catch up, please direct them to YouTube to watch the session. Have a good week. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Be
you
well,
all.
everyone. Bye now.